Hey everyone, so today I will be cropping a sweater. When I first started this project, I looked on the web myself to find a reference on how to guide me through this process. And while I did find lots of videos on how to crop a sweater, a lot of the sweaters in the videos weren't exactly like mine. For example, some of them didn't have like the same pockets as mine, or they didn't have that ribbed hem at the bottom. And it kind of frustrated me, so I decided to make my own videos. That way, if any of you also want to crop a jacket like this, you can go ahead and watch this video and hopefully it will help you out. So as you can see, I'm just removing the zipper. I'm using my seam ripper and I'm just taking the zipper off. And when you're finished with that, we're going to go ahead and toss that to the side and save it for later because we will be needing it later, obviously. As well as removing the zipper, we're also going to be removing the pockets. So when you're finished with this, you can go ahead and start removing the pockets. So you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to take your seam ripper once again, and you're just going to start seam ripping anywhere that the pocket is sewed onto, and you're going to do this for both sides. And when you're finished removing both of the pockets, you're going to go ahead and do the same thing and just put them off to the side. I do want to note, just be a little careful when you remove everything. You don't want to make any snags or tears in the clothing just in case you'll see it when you're finished. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Be a little careful. And as you can see, I'm seam ripping the bottom of the pocket. In a way, I'm killing two birds with one stone because as I'm seam ripping the bottom of the pocket, I'm also starting to seam rip the bottom hem. So now that I'm finished with the pocket, you can see that I already began removing the bottom hem. So you're just going to continue removing it with your seam ripper all the way around. You can use scissors if you'd like. I believe you can. I just decided to use a seam ripper because I just wanted to be more precise since I am going to sew it back on. But once we're finished with this, we can finally begin cutting our sweater to the length we want. I do want to note that when you're deciding how much to cut off the jacket, please keep in mind of this hem that we just removed. We're going to add it back on at the end, so just remember that however much you cut, it's going to add a couple inches or so when you put it on at the end. So now I'm just cutting my jacket how short I want it. I'm cutting pieces and then folding it over and then cutting it again. I use this method to make sure that everything is evenly cut across, but if you have a better method or another way that you like to do it, you can go ahead and use that too. But once we're finished cutting, we can start putting everything back together. And we're going to go ahead and start with the pockets. I use this Wonder Tape. I love Wonder Tape. I use it for almost everything. It's amazing, but I'm using it today so that way I don't have to use the pins to put it in place right here. You can use Wonder Tape for when you want to keep clothing in place, like instead of using the pins. I mostly use it for hems. I feel like it keeps everything in place better and the hems are more even. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and use the tape to fold this piece over. As you can see, part of the pocket folds over on the back side. So we're going to go ahead and fold it and use the tape to stick it down and keep it in place. I don't know if your jacket has this, but as you can see, mine has like a little line right there. So when I taped everything down, I just tried my best to align it and make it straight because I didn't want it crooked or uneven. But when I was finished with that, I went ahead and used pins to go ahead and pin all the spots that I'm going to sew on the pocket. And you're just going to go ahead and take it to your sewing machine and sew it on there. Now, I don't show it here, but you do want to make sure that you backstitch when you start and when you end. You just want to make sure everything is secure. You know, you put your hands in your pockets and you don't want any seams to come undone or anything. So just front and back stitch when you start and when you end to prevent that. Make sure everything is secure. And when you're done, it should look like this. It looks great. It looks like they were never even taken off in the first place. Then we're going to go ahead and start putting on the bottom hem, and as you can see, I use safety pins to put them in place. I believe you should use an overlock machine for this part, however, I don't have one, so I just used a stitch on my sewing machine to mimic the look of it. But if you do have an overlock machine, feel free to use that instead. And now it should look like this. I think it looks really nice, but to make it look even nicer, go ahead and take an iron to it so that way it can be as flat as possible, and just make sure all the seams are flat. Now we're going to go ahead and cut the zipper to the appropriate length. I would suggest cutting it about a 1/2 inch or an inch above however long the sweater is, because we'll be removing the teeth, as you can see, because we're going to tuck that piece in when we sew everything back together. But when we cut the zipper, we also cut the stopper off too, so now we're going to have to create something to stop the zipper from flying off. So I got a needle and thread, and I went ahead and just sewed the thread around there quite a few times. I don't know exactly how many times you're supposed to do it, but I did it quite a few times just because I don't want to worry about accidentally losing it or it flying off once again. So just do it however many times as you think is best, and be sure to do it to both sides so that way the zipper is secure and it doesn't fly off. And when you're finished, you can test it out and make sure that it stays just like so. Now it's time to sew the zipper on there. It's not an invisible zipper, so you don't have to worry about hiding everything, but do try to sew as close as you can to the teeth as possible, just to make it look nice and professional. And once again, I front and back stitched at the end and the beginning just to make sure everything was secure. And when you're finished, you should have a fully functional zipper and it should work perfect. I did realize that I made a mistake and I cut the zipper just a little too short. That's why be sure to cut it about 1 inch or so above. As you can see, the top of the zipper is supposed to go tucked into like that fabric right there, the part that's ripped. But unfortunately, since it's too short, I'm just going to have to put that fabric back together, tuck it all in place without the zipper, and just sew it how it was before. I'll also have to fold the top of the zipper on its own back and go ahead and sew it by itself. So I had to make a couple adjustments because I made a mistake, but if you need help on how to sew the top of the zipper in there, there's lots of videos how to do so if you're ever confused. But I just didn't include what I did because I did make a mistake. But it did come out perfect in the end. This is the final look. I really love it. I think it looks like it was untouched for the most part, and I really like it. I hope that this video is helpful to you, and if it is, please like or comment. I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you.